Hello, everybody. We would like to welcome all of you tonight. And in particular, I would like to start by thanking the COH, which is College of Humanities, the marketing team, which also handles our external relations, for helping the Department of Africana Studies to put this event together. So, as is customary, we would like to start today by saying that we respectfully acknowledge the University of Arizona is on the land and territories of indigenous peoples. Today, Arizona is home to 22 federally recognized tribes, with Tucson being home to the Odam and Yaqui. Committed to diversity and inclusion, the university strives to build sustainable relationships with sovereign native nations and indigenous communities through education offerings, partnerships, and community service. So for those who do not know me, my name is Praise Zenenga. I'm the department head for the Africana Studies, which is part of the College of Humanities. So our department is housed in a school called the School of International Languages, Literatures, and Cultures, which is also housed in the College of Humanities. So many may be wondering, what do we do in Africana Studies? In the Africana Studies department, we offer a bachelor's degree and a minor in Africana Studies. We also offer a very exciting minor in hip-hop cultures and a certificate in Caribbean Studies. So if there are students here or those listening online, we would like to encourage them to not only take our courses, but to also major minor in our degree programs, and also to consider our certificate in Caribbean Studies. Okay, sorry about that. Our world-class faculty teach students to think analytically and critically about global Black experiences in space and time, especially across Africa and its wider diaspora, including the USA. As we all know, Black History Month is a time to honor, celebrate, and acknowledge the achievements and accomplishments, as well as contributions and rich legacy of Black people from the USA and around the globe. Now we figure out that Black History Month is being celebrated in almost across the whole world, in places like Ireland, France, Germany, and almost about 40 African countries do celebrate it as well. Today we are gathered here simultaneously to celebrate our long history, our contributions to society, and our ability to thrive under very difficult circumstances, and also to look forward and celebrate the here and now, in particular the current manifestations of the painful reality of systemic discrimination, and our collective responsibility to create and promote a more just and inclusive future. So inclusion is one of our core values of this institution, so that's what we are striving to do as well. Tonight, we seek to go beyond acknowledging our dark history and spotlight Black achievement by some amazing, trailblazing, and phenomenal local women. This year, we put together a panel to highlight the exciting ways in which local Black women in Tucson are enriching our communities and creating unimaginable possibilities for the future. So for the next 1 hour, get ready to reflect and recognize the significant contributions of these phenomenal local women as they share stories and testimonies of their amazing determination and innovations. So thank you for joining us for a Black History Month event. We also welcome our audiences who are online, and we would like to let you know that this event is sponsored by the College of Humanities, the Department of Africana Studies, and Arizona Humanities. And we know that the executive director for Arizona Humanities, Brenda, is watching online. We miss you, Brenda. And we had Brenda last year. They sponsor our events every year. And we also have a forthcoming event. I think we have a very exciting hip-hop event. It's called The Business of Hip-Hop. and betting on yourself. This is by a very experienced music executive who is coming here on the 27th. My colleagues will speak more about that event later. So tonight we'll be talking with an impressive panel of Black women innovators, Dr. Tani Sanchez, who is a professor with the Department of Africana. Dr. Tani, would you like to raise your hand? Yes, that's Dr. Sanchez, who is a professor in the Department of Africana Studies and a member of our Black History Month committee, was instrumental in bringing this panel together, and she's the one who mooted this idea of focusing on the local. You know, traditionally we always do the male-centric thing, so today we decided to put women on the spotlight and break away with such a tradition. Thank you, Dr. Sanchez. And she will be one of our moderators tonight, and she was also assisted by Dr. Deanna Daniels. You want to raise your hand to put together this event. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help welcome Dr. Sanchez.
Okay, I'm very pleased to be one of the moderators along with my colleague, Dr. Daniels. And before we kind of get into that, well, let me just talk a little bit about Dr. Daniels. Her current research is in Black religion, the intersections of gender and sexuality, Black speculative fiction, and horror movies. And she's fantastic. I've heard her talk. She's wonderful. And I do want to say something about Dr. Zaninga and the Department of Africana Studies. Dr. Zaninga is really the person who approves this stuff, and it all goes out and he supports it. And he has really been just wonderful in terms of the diaspora people, but also African American people. So that's really important to me, and it's important to him. And I just want to kind of say he's wonderful. And also, just very briefly, I want to mention the people who are here. Dr. Johnny Bowens, please raise your hand. And these are all faculty within Africana Studies. Dr. Yusuf Abana. And I saw Dr. Jennifer Donahue, but I don't, oh, there she is, way in the back. Dr. Bayo Ijegbemi, here. And Dr. Nadia Charles. So, okay, our panelists are now going to introduce themselves. And so I'm asking you to give your name and tell us a little bit about you so we know why you're here.
I was trying to get her to go first. She's too good. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all for this opportunity. My name is Cheree Meeks, and I serve as the Assistant Dean for Programs, Diversity, and Inclusion in the W.A. Franke Honors College. And that is an opportunity for me to be involved in administrative level policy changes, practices, ensuring that we are creating spaces for our students to be successful in, and that's for all of our students. Of course, we understand some of the challenges for our marginalized students, but I'm really excited to be in that space, and I want to also acknowledge that that was a position that I created for myself and advocated for so that we would have that in the college, so perhaps that will come up later. Thank you. And I also serve as the president of NAACP Tucson here in this community, which is the oldest civil rights organization. Yesterday, we celebrated 115 years, so really excited about that, and excited to do the work of social justice and civil rights in this community.
Good evening. My name is Taranika Sanders. I am the very proud principal of Utterback Middle School here in Tucson. Yes, yes, home of the unicorns. I have been in this position for it'll be 6 years in July, and it has really honestly been the honor of my life to serve the Utterback community, the South Side, the Vistas, the underserved South Side, but we have a diamond on our campus. It's a joyful place that I'm grateful to say has been turned around. We're a turnaround school We have gone from being an F school to a B school by the Arizona Department of Education. Thank you. And we did it in 4 years. And that has been, just something that we're so proud of on our campus. We've led this work in love. I will say that, like it's been a literal labor of love and joy in bringing equitable educational systems to our students, despite a broken system. It's not because we're overly funded. It's not because we're a specialized school. We don't cherry pick kids. We're a neighborhood school. We have open green borders that allows any student to come to Utterback, really breaking apart these very clear pipelines of those students that can and those that can't, or we don't know and we don't care. We don't do that at Utterback. And so that's been my life's work in doing that. I've done it now here in Tucson. I'm home to Chicago. I'm a Chicagoan, born and raised, proud. Really, I'm a South suburban girl. I know my family's at home watching you are not from Chicago. I'm from Matson, Illinois, south suburb of Chicago. But my practice began in the Chicago public school systems on the west side of Chicago. I've always had this desire and passion to serve underserved communities and students. It's just been where I've always wanted to be. And in that, we've had a lot of success in using really strong research-based models to change and turn around schools. It's not it's not magic, right? It's intelligence, it's care, it's research. And so through those practices that I learned in Chicago public schools as a teacher leader, and then as an assistant principal, and now as a principal, these strategies have really worked and can transcend students' lives. And we've seen that happen over the course of now. This is my 17th year in education. So thank you.
Good evening. My name's Laura Pendleton-Miller. I've been in Tucson for over 40 years. I'm a financial consultant. I started my own business in financial services back in 1991. And last year, I went part-time so I could spend more time with what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. We have opened a nonprofit Black art gallery in downtown Tucson called Blue Lotus Artists Collective. And that's what we'll be talking about this evening. In the past, I've been an active volunteer in the community, mostly in areas of education and the arts. And so this just feels like the culmination of a lot of loves for me.
Good evening. I'd like to thank Tani and those of you who are involved with putting this together, because this is a wonderful opportunity for all four of us women up here, but to also pay homage to all of those of you who've been supporting us along the way. My name is Beverly Elliott. I'm the executive director of the African American Museum of Southern Arizona. I am by trade an educator. I'm a retired educator that went back to work as a volunteer, so I'm not getting paid. A lot of people think, oh, you're executive director. No, I'm a volunteer. We started this all a few years ago, and it has been a labor of love because I've always been very interested in my own family history. And what I've been finding out is every time you find a story, guess what? It's somebody's family. It's about the history or something that they contributed to. So we have had an amazing ride for the last 2 years. Most museums take 5 to 20 years to open. We did it in 18 months. So we are extremely excited that Tucson and Southern Arizona has stepped up to the plate and provided us with some amazing stories. There's some amazing firsts in the United States right here in Tucson, and most people aren't aware of that. And I think those are the things that people can come in and get educated about at the museum. So I invite all of you to stop in. We're on campus, right near the bookstore. We've had great success in bringing in some national folks. We just had Carlotta Walls here of the Little Rock Nine. We've also had Ruby Bridges here about a year and a half ago. Stacy Snowden, her dad, was the very first NCAA Division I BLAC coach in the United States. She also gave his legacy story. So we hope that you'll come in and hear about some of the firsts, but also some of the amazing stories that people have shared with us as a part of being connected to Southern Arizona or being here as a native. Thank you.
Okay, well, what we're going to do is we both, Dr. Daniels and I, we have questions that we want all of you to address. And the first question, is, how do you see yourself making magic happen, reflecting on our theme? And I want to change the question a little bit because, as Taranika was saying, it's not just making magic happen out of nothing. There's preparation, there's research, there are all of these things that are the foundation. So how do you all see yourselves making magic happen in your individual areas?
Okay.
Okay.
I thought you passed the mic. I didn't know if you dropped it or passed it.
I actually want to go first this time because it's really hard following them. So, they're just so lively and energetic, so I don't want to follow them. Anyway. I see the magic in what we're bringing to this community through the arts. I feel like the whole thing actually has been magical, so I was kind of happy that you were bringing up that point. We did not initially intend to open a gallery. We initially got together to talk about how we could be advocates for Black artists. But out of that process, things just kept happening. It's like all the clues kept saying, no, you're just supposed to do this. We had people saying things along the way about, why are we always waiting for other people to want us? I'd go to another community to find out what was going on with artists there, and they'd tell me nothing until Black people started doing something themselves. We thought once we decided we would start doing this and do the gallery, we were going to start in the planning stage, and there was a lot of planning, but really we had the cart before the horse, because we got really lucky again where somebody loved what we said we were going to do and donated space for us to do it. So everything just kept happening and rolling that this was indeed what we were supposed to do. And then when we even started thinking about, well, what are some of the shows and some of the people that we want to bring to the community, there were things that shouldn't have happened the way they did. For example, one of the things we wanted to do after we found that we had this lovely artist from Tucson, New Mexico, with a real special series of work that she had done, we felt that the best thing to combine that would be this series by Jacob Lawrence called the John Brown series. But it's, in museum collections. So how are we going to get a museum to lend to this upstart gallery in Tucson, Arizona, their John Brown collection? And we did it. So, there were just all these things that kept happening that were magical, that kept saying, no, you are doing what you're supposed to do.
Okay. Well, the museum started during the pandemic. And what actually was going on was I was retired, and my daughter and her husband had just moved back here. They had a kindergartner and a third grader during the pandemic. So you can imagine how you can corral a kindergartner. So she asked me to come over every day to help her with the kindergartner in particular. And he moved on to first grade, and in first grade, his first grade teacher said, it's Black History Month. I'd like for you to do a report. Well, he'd already learned how to Bing and Google and do everything else to look somebody up. But he looks over at me and he says, well, Nanu, so where is a museum that's here where I can find out about Black people people that look like me that live here? So I have friends that were with the Smithsonian. I call them and say, hey, where's a museum in the state that I can take my grandchild to once this pandemic lifts? And they came back and said, nothing is registered as an African-American museum in the state of Arizona. Now, people have their collections and people are saying they have their museum, but that means they didn't go through the processes. So I had friends with the Smithsonian. They said, you've got to take out this membership with the American Association of State and Local History. You have to do this. And I just followed what they said, but we're long distance. So I studied it. I go back and tell my grandson, well, sorry to tell you, honey, but there is not a museum that I can take you to that's saying it's the African American Museum in the state of Arizona. And you know what he says? What do you mean, no black people lived here? No, that's what would come out of the mouth of a 7-year-old. And I said, no, everybody probably has their things at home. Just like, we have our books over here, and we have photos over here, and we have artifacts. He looks at me and goes, well, Nanu, you should start a museum, and I'll help you. And there we go. And out of the mouths of babes, this whole thing started. And I continued doing a little bit of studying on how do you start a museum. It was not an easy process. I consider myself a lifelong learner. And I just continued to study and made contacts and kind of, just like probably everybody up here, there was magic. I don't know if it's magic or divine intervention, but anyway, it worked. And we just moved forward. We made a phone call to a friend of ours and said, what do you think? They said, we like this idea. Called another friend. We like this idea. We will help you. We called one friend. He said, I'll give you $100,000 to start it. There you go.
That's a friend.
That's a friend. So that being said, we just moved forward. So it was pretty much magic after that, and talking with the university, because a lot of African American museums and black museums closed down during the pandemic. They were making their money through fundraisers, just like we've been doing a lot of talking with people. And so many of them closed down that we decided we were going to ask the university, because they're not going to close down, that we would ask them if we could be up here with them, and they obliged and said absolutely, and they've been in our corner ever since. So we're very grateful to the U of A Foundation and Dr. Robbins for supporting us in this project.
Okay, magic. So I think the magic in the work that I've been honored to do really starts from my family. The love that my family has supplied me has been so strong and sustainable in my own leadership and in the way that I engage with the community. And so I have to start there, right? I mean, my parents just instilled these really deep values of like commitment and loyalty and, love of community. And, I had that growing up, and it has nourished my entire life and will continue. And so I say that to say that, to be an educator in today's world, in today's systems, is so daunting and so depleting that if you don't have a great foundation of love that you can pull from, then you will feel overwhelmed, lost, and bewildered. And this is when we start to see like students being neglected, and because teachers are this is not a profession for you to like be seeking love, right? I heard that somewhere, and it stuck with me. Like, if you're looking for love in your profession, education is not what it is, especially in public K-12 institutions. So you kind of have to have this like rock of a foundation to start from, because otherwise, you can really feel wrecked at the end of the day. So how do you pull magic from that? It's from the love that you already have. And so I say that to say that like the leadership that I've developed at Utterback is situated in love, right? And so in my first year of my principalship here in Tucson, first of all, I came into Tucson like, I'm Chicago, like, what, Tucson? Okay, right? I mean, I left, a war-torn, almost third world type of city, right? I mean, I've lost so many of my students over the years, right? Like to violence, to gangs, to drugs, to the streets, to neglect. And I was teaching in that, and I was leading in that. And so when I came here to Tucson, I was like, this should be easy peasy breezy, even though, right, like I'm taking on a school that has historically been a failing school. you know, it's situated in the hood or whatever. And so I'm like, yeah, but your hood's not like my hood back from the south side, right? West side. Like, that's not equivalent. It was equivalent. Like, I was like, oh, okay, Tucson? Okay, this is real, right? I mean, first day on the job, getting called like the B word from one of my like 6'0" students, right? And I'm like, okay, this is like home. We're gonna do this. So I had to re-gear back up because I thought that I was coming here to a more peaceful, more situated, a smaller district that was, you know, really attacking things. No, that was not what Utterback really was representing in the district at that time. And so, I mean, one of the first things I had to do as a leader, and as a new leader, I came here and this was my first year being a principal, and I had to, like, first of all, observe the scene, right, and see what was what. And immediately off the bat, I just had so much contention for my leadership. And I did not understand why, because the platform that I was coming on and how I got the job was built on equity and serving children. Like, how can that not be what everybody is here to do? And that just was not the case, right? And it made me understand why it was a failing school, because the adults were not ready to, like, do this work. And I'm just gonna call it out. Like, I had 11 teachers leave after my first year because they were like, yeah, no, we're not doing that work. Well, I was very firm that the work was equity work. The work was barrier removals. Like, I was very clear about that. There were so many big things that we could easily, low-hanging fruit in my opinion, that we could move out of the way of our kids and really start to attack, right? Like, why are they so disengaged and angry and mad and frustrated with us, right? And no one, like, half of my staff did not want to do that. And so that was the worst year of my life. It was an attack, right? Like, we don't have to listen to you. Like, you know, you're not even from here. Like, who do you think you are? I mean, folks were writing about me in newspapers, talking about what kind of deplorable human I was, all because I was standing on an equity platform for Black and brown children. And nobody actually really wanted to do this work with me. So it was the worst year of my life. So again, I had to lean on that magic of my foundation that I had, because if I didn't, I should have left. They were trying to run me away, but, you know, the love that I have in my life sustained. And those who were ready, and those who weren't left. And it was a blessing, right? Because I got to I inherited a fully staffed school, right? So these were not folks that I had an opportunity to talk about, like, this is what we're getting ready to do. No, I had to walk in day one with folks who had been there doing their thing, and it was not working, and they did not want to hear that. And that's always going to be problematic for some folks, especially when you look like me, right? Like, I also appear younger than I am, right? So people are like, how old are you again? Like, who are you? Like, what's your credentials? Like, what do you bring to the table? Like, that's always a question, I think, for women of color in leadership. Your credibility is first up questioned, right? And so I had to face that. And so I'm gonna pass the mic because, you know.
It is getting a little bit long.
Okay, yes, ma'am. I'm gonna pass the mic. But I just wanna say this one last thing, is that I was able to hire 12 new teachers that I vetted that had this equity platform, that had love of children, love of community, and it changed our school.
So when I think about magic, that's something that, I've been thinking a lot about, because we hear Black girl magic. And when I think about magic, I kind of think of that as this unknown. It's a trick. It's something that, we don't really understand. And so I've always been kind of, I don't know if I want to say I have Black girl magic. Because I don't think it's magic. I don't think it's a trick. I don't think it's a surprise or a thing that folks don't know about. But I don't really remember the question, but I think it has something to do with why you do this work or how you make it happen. So, So what I have learned is that it's so important to find the thing that you are gifted with. So I grew up and I always thought I was going to be a lawyer. That was, what I wanted to do because I, saw some things when I was a kid in Iowa, so Midwest, okay. And that was what I wanted to do. I went to school, studied political science, applied to law school, and that just wasn't the path for me because I was not accepted to any law school. And I went to the University of Iowa where there was a law school. But I know now that that wasn't the path for me. Along the way, I was involved in a lot of advocacy work that I didn't necessarily think was advocacy work at the time. I remember as an undergraduate being a part of some protests and sit-ins because we called it our Afro House, our Afro-American Cultural Center, and we had a Latino Native American Cultural Center, and then down the street was the Asian American Pacific Islander Cultural Center, and they wanted to merge these. And of course, when you think about that happening, it removes in some ways the history and the work. And so even, in college, I was, doing some things at the president's office and things like that to advocate, but I never thought that I would be in a position that I'm in now, just a few years later. Now, just a few, serving as the president of, this organization that is doing really good work, and an organization that I used to study as a little girl in this white community where where I played the violin, and we were asked to do things about composers, and folks were writing about Mozart and Bach. And I was like, but wait a minute, I know we are musical, so let me find, a Black composer. And so that was something that was always important to me, learning about myself, but then also advocating for things that were important to me. And so when I, became an adult, or as I've been doing the work that I've been doing, I have always been interested in my community and doing the thing that I'm interested in. So I really believe in the value of legislation and politics, the thing we don't want to talk about, but I truly believe that we need to be more active in what is happening in our communities, because that's where the decisions are being made. We have an opportunity to train people up. We have an opportunity to give them our voices, to share, to be a part of writing legislation, to be a part of advocating for those things. And so when I think about the schools, when I think about the things that we have access to and the things that are missing, I believe that we can make those changes if we prepare people to do the work, to not ask for someone else to do the thing that we can do for ourselves. And so I do believe that my magic is advocacy. I'm very passionate about certain things, and I know that some of those are things that people don't want to talk about, politics, but I'm ready for the conversation, and I think we need to do more of that. We need to get involved, not wait until it's something that directly impacts us, because let's be real, all things impact us. So we need to be paying attention, not just every 4 years, but we need to always be active and paying attention. And so I believe that I have been uniquely prepared along the way for this leadership role with this organization that I never, thought I would, be in this kind of role. I remember going to a meeting and I thought, well, I'm going to join this organization and be a member and be an active member. And now I'm leading it. And I'm really excited about the work that we've been doing here in the community, in bridging the gap across generations in the work, and ensuring that we are looking at so many different areas: education, the justice system, housing, healthcare. These are all things that are important, equally important. Sometimes we get caught up in one particular area and we focus on that, but if you get the masses working together, you find educators that can work on that. You find folks in the justice system that can make sure we have justice. You can get folks who work in healthcare, and all these things are interconnected, and so we need to not silo them, but figure out how we can strengthen our communities with all of these things together, and that's just something that I'm really passionate about. So that's what I do in my free time, and try to do it in the workplace as well.
All right, so I'm going to redirect a bit. And so I would like for each of you to tell me one word that exemplifies your sense of purpose, mission, or duty that guides your life. Just one word. Yeah. Just one. Anyone can start. One word that exemplifies your purpose, your mission, that guide your life.
I would say mine is love. You have to love what you're doing, love the people around you, and love those who don't love you. That's a little tough sometimes. Teaches you great lessons, however. And a love of things, a love of civil rights. And that's one of the things that the museum, we have a social justice wall. And that wall talks about historical things like voting. That's still going on. Why is that still going on, that we are still in a battle about voting rights? Housing rights, redlining. We are involved in mapping racist covenants with Dr. Jason Jurjevich. I mean, are we still, those covenants are still there. They're still, when you go to buy a house, it still says no blacks, Asians, Hispanics. But we don't want them to cross, we don't want them to take it off. Because historically, it needs to stay there. We just want to put a line through it. And then we want them to put a date on it. That's love, not to wipe us out, because that's what happens oftentimes with black folks. They wipe us out. We got to have a love for ourselves and advocate for ourselves, advocate for that history, love each other. I know Cheree just sent me some things about, I can't remember which of the
Senate Bill 1432.
Okay, there we go. There we go. And so we try to support that as a museum, because guess what? Those are the same issues that have been out there since the beginning of time of black folks in this country. So we want to make sure that we're supporting that. So you got to love that we love the NAACP. I'm a lifetime member. Love that we take care of our children. I'm a former educator. Love that we have our art. That's so important. I was there the very first couple of meetings with the Black Lotus. We've got to love each other in this community and not knock each other down. Let's not be crabs in a barrel. And I'm from the Detroit area. So, yep. So, yes, those are things that we grow up with in that black community that's so supportive. The village. Love that village that supports you.
I'd say I've been guided by responsibility. I feel that I've been really very fortunate to have been very loved by a family, by a community, and I've been afforded a lot of opportunities that I know a lot of black and brown people did not get. And so I've always felt really particularly responsible to make sure that I was trying then to offer some opportunities for those who had not been quite as fortunate as I've been.
I'm cheating. I don't have just a word. I'm gonna give you a quote, but I'll make it quick. It is a quote by Audre Lorde, and it is, when I dare to be powerful, to use my voice in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I'm afraid. And that guides me, because this is hard work. To be, ridiculed in the papers, to have people disagree with you, and to do so with such hatred in some cases is a difficult thing. But to make change, sometimes we have to step out and we have to do the things that are difficult, and we have to say the things that people don't want to hear, and that is a challenge. So what are you willing to sacrifice? So I think that's an important thing to consider as well. So I think it is important to think about the future. So things may be difficult. My voice may shake when I'm, standing before someone, board of supervisors or somewhere asking for something. But I do it anyway, because I know to not do it means that we will not make progress. It means that the next person may not say it. So if I don't say it, it doesn't get said. And that is not okay. So I use that quote.
Yeah, Audre, man, she got a, that was good. Yeah, she has great words. I think I'm gonna have to roll with conviction as my word. I come from 3 generations of Taurus women, so we're very stubborn by nature, and that has served me in this role to have strong convictions about what's right, and not to let that be wavering. I think, as women, we're often super reflective and really open sometimes to other people's thoughts about what's right, what's good, how to look, all of those things. But when it comes to the work of equity and education, my convictions are so strong that that's unwavering. That's not something that can be taken away from me, no matter what you say about me, no matter what you say about my students, no matter what, like funding doesn't come down the pipeline. Conviction has helped us to find opportunity and resources and the right people and the right movement and the right mission and vision of our campus that has stood the test of time, and I think even beyond me, right, will still stand at Utterback. And so that's something that I'm really proud of and something that I hold dear to my heart.
Okay, we are going to have individual questions, for each one of you. And just because we're running a little late, please try to keep it to like a minute and a half, okay? All right. So my first question is for you, Beverly. You have some unbelievable, fantastic, amazing stories about Black people in Tucson, Arizona. Could you just share one or two of them?
Sure. Well, one of the people that actually people are most interested in, and they're on our website, is actually Dr. Johnny Bowens, who is here. We kind of monitor that. The other person is a gentleman named Albert Randall. He served at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. He was a Top Gun. He was a colonel at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. Back in 1960 and 70, you could wear a patch on your sleeve. You could design it yourself. So according to him, back in those days, people had swastikas, they had Confederate flags, they had bad fingers and bad words. Well, he, as a Top Gun, gets called into the Pentagon because guess what he designed? A Confederate flag with a black power fist. Yes. So he gets called into the Pentagon. When he gets to the Pentagon, they said, I'm sorry, you can't wear that. He said, well, if I'm not wearing that, those guys aren't wearing theirs. And he said, well, the folks up at the biggies up in the Pentagon said, well, what are we going to do about it? He said, we're Americans. We're going to wear an American flag on our sleeves. So if you see a military person, a person that's a police officer or a sheriff, and they have a American flag on their sleeves, it's because of Albert Randall, right here at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, Tucson, Arizona. Was that a minute and a half?
Well, it was close. It was close.
Okay.
So we've been talking about magic a lot, and as a horror scholar, I just want to just ping in there that magic has been demonized, and that's why it seems like it's unknown and that it's random. But we know, those who study magic, is that it is intentional. It's a labor, right? You've all talked about labor of love. So this question is actually to Taranika. Can you talk to me and talk to us about a pivotal moment, one pivotal moment that became a game-changing moment for you as you turned your school from an F-rated school to a B-rated school? Just one moment that you knew for yourself and for others that it shifted.
Minute and a half.
In a minute and a half. One pivotal moment.
Why are you doing me like that? Can you come back? Can I come back? I gotta think about that. I'm so sorry. Okay. Because I want to be concise.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll move on to Laura. What is so special? Are we doing it that way? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What is so special about having a Black art gallery, and why did we need one in Tucson, Arizona, that is like the one you have, that actually is like kind of professional and artists coming in and talk? Why does Tucson, Arizona need that?
Tucson needs to hear those voices. I've collected art for over 40 years, and one of the things I found over those years was that there was very little in my collection from Black artists. And why? Because when I was going into galleries, into museums, I was not seeing that. So as I started to meet some Black artists and collect their work and talk to them, what I heard from them over and over again was how hard it was for them to get visibility. So that's what started the conversation. So it became about visibility for Black artists. And then on top of that, I started thinking about what never comes here. I mean, we had one show here, 30 Americans. You know, other than that, we don't get the shows. We had Robert Colescott on this campus, living in this community. There was a retrospective of his work, top Black artist, Venice Biennale. that show did not come to Tucson. Shame, shame, shame. So it started to become not just what we could do for visibility for local artists, but what are the kinds of things that we can bring to the community that otherwise would not be brought to the community. We also felt like we're in a particular time in our history where we're being written more and more out of the history. And so in many cases, Black artists tell stories through their work. And so it was an opportunity for us to maybe fill some of the void of the education system in talking about contributions that we have made to the community. The other thing we wanted to do was demystify galleries and museums for Black folks. When I talk about people about their travels and what they did on the travels, a lot of times that was missing, and it was because there was not a particular comfort in going into those kinds of elitist spaces. So the other thing we wanted to do was create a warm and welcoming environment for people to have that kind of cultural experience.
Thank you.
Need more time?
Okay, all right. Sorry. Thank you, and thank you for those inspirational words because it triggered something in me. So the pivotal moment for us, I think, at Utterback was when we started to see discipline almost dissipate on our campus, which is sounds like a small thing, right? But in retrospect, right, it was an accumulation of all of the instructional, like academic pursuits and confidence and esteem that our students now had academically over the course of a few years. It was like really starting to sink in, right? And that was showing up in their behaviors on campus. And that's when I knew we had magic. I was like, oh, you came to learn today? Like, you in class all day, right? Like, no more brawls, no more fights. Like, we're almost zero discipline on our campus, and that is unheard of middle schools anywhere, right? Our kids are low socioeconomic students. We're a 100% Title I school. We are really like, and again, all students can come to Utterback, right? So we deal with a lot of traumatized students, and we keep them in classrooms, and they want to be in classrooms. And that, for me, was the most pivotal. When I could walk my hallways and walk and see clear hallways when that bell rings, I was like, oh yeah, we're here, we've made it. We can do all things now because they're in class, so.
So the next question, of course, is for Dr. Meeks. And so I believe all of you are doing the work your soul must have, as Dr. Katie Cannon would say. But in a world, got you, we right there. So in a world where diversity, inclusion, equity, and advocacy are constantly being challenged and critiqued, you still do such great, important work. My question is, what kind of legacy do you want to leave? Why are you looking at me like that? In 1 minute.
Oh yeah, 1 minute. So, I want to leave a legacy that really says we can do it. We can make the change. When we start out in different movements that we've seen throughout the history of this country, they haven't always been easy. They've been challenging. They've been, people will say, don't do that. There's no reason for it. There's no purpose. It doesn't make sense. You can't do this. And I believe that often when that happens, you've got a good thing. And so I believe that the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion is important. Of course, we're seeing across the country, and we're seeing right here in Tucson, ways that folks are trying to eliminate it. I think it's because they don't understand. So for me, it is important to help people gain better understanding. As educators, we need to be talking about the things that are happening in our schools, and we should be talking about the things that are happening in our communities, because we can't expect people to just know what we mean when we say diversity, equity, inclusion. Well, what does that mean, and what does that mean for me? I had a great conversation with someone, and just thinking about what EDI means in higher education, and what does that mean if you work at Starbucks? What does that mean if you work for a 500 what is it, Fortune 500 corporation. What do these things mean? Because in different environments, they may mean something different. And so we have to have the conversation. So I want to leave a legacy of, we can do it, a legacy that really is one that's already been laid out for me. And I'm trying to keep the tread going on that path. And I just want to bring some people alongside me.
We were going to have optional, we were going to ask the panelists if they had questions among themselves, but we don't really have time for that. Deanna, would you mind taking over audience questions, maybe taking 2 or 3?
Yes, would anybody like to ask a question of the panel? All right, Dr.
Yeah, if I were to read your slogan, Black Women Enriching Tucson, one of the words I would add to that is Black Women Power Enriching Tucson. And I'd like for you all to speak to the issue of power of Black women.
I believe we make things happen. We have vision in so many spaces, and we see that we don't have to stay where we are. There's opportunity for us to collaborate and to partner. Like, just the energy I'm getting, sitting up here is really amazing. But there's so much that we can do if we work together, if we have conversations, if we are thoughtful. Oftentimes we want changes to happen, and they aren't always thought out for the purpose of longevity and sustainability, something that will transcend generations. And so I really think that as Black women, we know historically, yes, we are powerful. We make things happen. We are resilient. We're great. But we can use that greatness in so many ways to uplift our community, and to always be thinking about how we can be better. And that's not to say we're not good enough, but we can be better. And so I really get a lot of energy and power. We have different skills and talents, and so I think it is important to allow one another, and not allow because I can't give someone else permission, but to recognize the light that other Black women bring to whatever environment or atmosphere or whatever it is we're doing, and to acknowledge that and to support one another. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I'll tack on to that because I think that's absolutely brilliant. And, historically Black women, I'm thinking in particular in education, right, we know have been disruptors to oppressive systems. And so I lean into that legacy of my 4 sisters, my ancestors, and carry that light with me because they did it under the most dire circumstances. And we still continue to do them under the most dire circumstances. And so we have to lean into that power of ancestral, history. And so I also think about how, if Black women are leading some of the most innovative strategies and schools in Tucson. I don't know if you all know that, but Black women in particular are leading change turnarounds. I'm not the only one. I have a sisterhood. And it's no miracle. It's literally by leaning into our history and our power as women. I'm so glad you asked that question because we just do that. We do that, and we're meant to do that. So.
I'd say I love the power of the tenacity of Black women. I've always felt like you do not want to get in the way of a Black woman on a mission. If it's something that we believe in, we're just focused and going for it and putting together the resources to make it happen. And you can throw hurdles in the way. We're just going to go around and we're jump them.
I agree. Historically, Black women, I had an experience once where I was around quite a few white women who were at their first job in the early 1970s. I was at Canyon Ranch at that time, a fitness director. One of the things they said, "Oh, isn't this amazing that we get to work?" I said, "Excuse me." I can tell you this, my ancestors got off the boat working and probably were working before they got on the boat. So as far as I'm concerned, I think it's kind of in our DNA that we persevere, that we are resilient, that we figure out a way to make something out of nothing. I had grandparents that were extremely poor, grew up in the South, and that was one of the things. You never went hungry. Although you thought you were, no, they were going to find a way for you to have something to eat. They were going to find a way for you to have a pair of shoes. They were going to find a way, and it was usually grandma. Not that grandpa wasn't working, but grandma knew you needed the shoes, and she was the one cooking the food. And I think that just got passed down generation after generation with black women. So that power was there from the time we set foot on this earth and in this country.
Yeah, we are going to end it just because I'm trying to keep us on schedule. But first of all, we're going to do something. We want to thank the women who participated in this panel.
Tani. Thank you.
And so if you want to know what they got some Africana Studies swag.
Okay.
They got, they say they're the best T-shirts on campus. That's what I've heard. So they got a T-shirt, they got a metal container. You guys know you're not supposed to do plastic anymore, right? And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming to our event. We have another Black History Month event, and it's going to be a real kind of different, but in a way it isn't. It is Benny Pooh, and he is a businessman. I don't know if you know this, but hip-hop is a billion-dollar industry. Mm-hmm. Black folks created it because they wanted to do artistic things, cultural things. But Black folks created it to make money as well. And he is one of the people who has been really instrumental with a number of hip-hop artists. He wrote a book. So we really do invite you. The information is up there. Tuesday, February 27th, we're bringing him in. So by all means, come out. And also at the very beginning, at the very entryway, when you come here, we have a bunch of flyers. Please pick up some of the information on your way out. And not only that, because I don't really want you to leave, but I want you to kind of mingle and talk to our panelists and realize they are an example of just super fantastic things. And it's something that everyone, Black women, sure, it's Black History Month, but these are just inspirations for everybody, and this is all our community. None of these are saying, she's not saying only Black people can come to the museum. She's not saying only Black people can come to the art gallery. And Taranika has a school that is diverse, mixed. And then, of course, you are doing diversity and equity and inclusion here on campus. So please, I would like you to give them a round of applause. And again, thank you for coming. Please come up, mingle, and if you had questions, now's the time to come ask them.
Tony, can I tell them about the opening this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to add one thing. We are having an opening at the gallery this weekend. On Friday evening at 6:30, we are going to have a panel discussion by 3 artists, moderated by a local author. And on Saturday from 5:30 to 8:30, we'll have the opening for the show for the 3 artists, 2 from Seattle, 1 from here in Tucson. So I hope you all come.